everybody. My name is Teresa Bowers, and this is Webinar Wednesday. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, there are just a few things to mention. To view the presentation, you can follow the link provided in the webinar confirmation email from Datamine Software. Dial-in information is also included within that same email. We have muted the phone lines to prevent background noise. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box on your screen. We've allocated time after the formal presentation for our presenters to answer your questions. Joining us today from Datamine Sudbury office is David Kerr. Dave is the Global Solutions Manager for Geological Database Management System Fusion. Today he'll be showing an overview of our new and improved product, Report Manager 3, which is set to be released with Fusion 8 in the next month or so. The floor is yours, Dave.
Thanks, Teresa. Thank everybody for spending some time with us this afternoon to go through our latest offering in the quality control charting space. So something that we're excited about here at Datamine is the new Report Manager. So it's something that we've spent a lot of time over the past couple of months to work towards a new product. We've really taken a departure from what was previously known as Report Manager for us here in the Fusion suite of products. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to bring you through a very kind of hands-on, in-depth demonstration of what the new product looks like and some of the new features that will be available. I'm going to be speaking in a way that I'm going to kind of assume a certain level of knowledge within the Fusion suite. So it'll kind of be geared primarily to people who are already familiar with Fusion and with Report Manager. But hopefully it'll also be enough information so for anybody who's potentially joining us as a potential client or somebody evaluating the products, it won't be in too low a detail, and you'll still get a good idea of exactly what you can do here. So as I mentioned, we previously had a product called Report Manager, and we made a decision that it was time to kind of take it down to the bare bones and essentially rewrite the product. There was certain limitations that we kind of kept stumbling upon, and so instead we took it down to the bare requirements and then started building things up from there. And one of the things that we've done is kind of a consolidation of the various charts that you can use in the product. So anybody who had been using the previous tool, there was a long list of charts that you could choose from, and it was kind of, some of the charts kind of did the same thing, and some of them served very specific purposes. And so one of the exercises that I undertook was a full understanding of exactly what each chart provides, what value it provides, what it's actually going to tell you. And so we've then grouped things into appropriate charts and then provided various options to achieve some of the different formats or the different scalings that were available for the various charts. And so at a high level, we can kind of group the various charts into these buckets of, some charts are going to be specific to monitoring precision. Some of them are specific to when we're monitoring accuracy or contamination. And then we're going to have kind of a suite of other charts that are just going to have to do with, your sampling information and just kind of making sense of what you've got in your database. So, one of the things to keep in mind as we're going through this demonstration is that the data that we're going to be dealing with and the typical workflow that you would be following as a user of the software, by the time we get to Report Manager, the data is in the database. And what that means is, the samples have been collected, the quality control samples have been defined, all of the error limits have also been defined, the samples have all been analyzed, and certificates have been imported through our lab import module, and all of the quality QA/QC validations have all been applied, and any appropriate kind of actions taken, that sort of thing. So the main thing to take away is that at this point the data's in the database, it's been validated, we've got all of our QC reference materials already in the system. So now we're going to dive into the module where we want to do some analysis of that data, and we want to look at it and kind of slice it and dice it in certain ways, and ultimately kind of set things up for potentially some sort of regular reporting interval. One of the things that we did here is we brought in an external consultant, somebody who's very well known in the space, and his name is Dr. Barry Smee. And what he did for us, it was a really great exercise, and essentially we sat down with him for a week and just kind of absorbed as much from him as we possibly could. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on was really making sure that we had the appropriate kind of supporting documentation for the charts that we're going to be providing to you as the users of the software. And one of the key parts of that as well is, what is each chart actually telling you, and how do you interpret it? So in the past, that's something that we lacked a bit, was kind of that supporting material as far as what's what and how to make sense of the various charts for people who maybe weren't familiar with what a Thomson-Howarth chart was. So now what we've got is really a solid understanding, first of all, on our side of exactly what the various charts are doing, and then we can kind of provide to you now as a best practice. Here are the different charts that you should be doing to achieve these kinds of goals, and here's how to interpret the data. If you see certain trends, then this is kind of what it might mean, or this chart's going to tell you something about this, but don't use it all on its own, and kind of use it in conjunction with other charts to give you a complete picture. And so, we've got that now, where we can break down for each chart, what is the various data that we're looking at, and ultimately, what is it going to tell you about your data, and how to interpret that data. Okay? So now what we see on the screen, this is just kind of details of the various charts, but I've definitely got kind of more detailed descriptions and interpretations here. But I'm not going to spend too much time going through kind of PowerPoint. I'm going to now jump right into the software because I want us to spend most of the time there. So what I'm going to do now is share. I have a virtual machine running on my database, and it's running Windows 8.1. So this is, running on the latest release of the Microsoft Windows. I've got a demo database that I've got set up here with lots of data, so it's going to give us a good opportunity to see what the various options and features of the software are going to do, and how they're going to help us interpret kind of these large data sets. So first thing that we might see and should be familiar is the security model, right? So we've extended the standard Fusion security model, so all the users out there that already have Fusion accounts will be able to make use of this module. And of course, something that we'll talk about a little bit later on is we've added a bit of a security model within Report Manager as far as who's going to have access to which charts, and who can run what and who can change what. So the system knows who you are, it knows what business unit you're a part of, and can control the access to the data, first of all, and also the charts themselves. So I'm going to launch right into the software. and we've got things broken up kind of at a high level into 3 main modules. So we've got a charts module, we've got an activities module, and a reports module. This is going to be the first version of Report Manager 3, but actually this product now is going to evolve into kind of the Fusion reporting and querying tool. So what that means is that you're going to start to see kind of through subsequent releases after Fusion 8 are more modules enabled here. So for anybody out there who's familiar with Query Builder, we're effectively going to redo Query Builder in this product and add it as a new module, kind of a query module. And the same goes for Fusion Connects, which provides a bit of an abstraction from the database, lets the users work in a very familiar, interface. But for now, charts, activities, reports, we're going to go through each one of these modules, what they do, what they mean, how they differ from the old version of Report Manager, because there are some significant changes in kind of how these objects relate to each other. But we'll hopefully get through each one. So getting into the charts module, now what I've got is a nice kind of full suite of charts that I've already created. And I've already gone into the options and kind of set up certain analysis and certain colors. And so what I'm hoping to do is really give you a good taste of really what you're going to be able to achieve here. One of the themes that we've really been working towards and really implemented into Report Manager are these notions of flexibility and really complete control. So we're going to provide for you kind of the base functionality. Here's how a certain chart behaves as far as how do we organize the data, how do we generally display the data. But from that point on, we're going to give things a default look, but then you can go and play. You're going to have control over all the different lines and points and titles and labels. You're going to be able to change colors however you want, fonts, colors, font sizes, that sort of thing. And so that's been really a big theme for us here as we've seen from different clients that everybody kind of wants things to appear a certain way, whether it's following some sort of corporate standard or if it's just a general preference. Now you've got the ability to do that. So I'm going to just jump right into one of these charts. So we've got the standard control charts, the Schubert charts, the various precision charts as far as comparing original and duplicate samples. But we're going to focus first on the standard control charts. So I'm going to jump into one of these control charts. And, at a first glance, yeah, it looks like a pretty, normal control chart. But really some of the things that we can start to see are some of the functionality here. So one of the things to draw your attention to is kind of the different colors and drawing of the points as they relate to the, error limits. So on this chart, we've got a straight black line down the middle, and this is our certified value, okay? So for this standard, for the silver, it's got a certified value of 50.1 grams per ton, or 50.5. On these lines themselves, you can control the color, you can control the text that appears on these lines, whether you want to show the actual value. Again, it's all up to you. You want these labels to go on the left side instead. You can do this now. But as it stands, I've got this chart showing me 2 and 3 standard deviations on either side of the certified value. And the points, as they're being plotted, I can control to give it a different visual property if it falls within this 2 to 3 standard deviation. And then beyond this 3rd standard deviation, I really want this to be visible. I want it to kind of slap me in the face that I've got a result outside of these accepted tolerance limits. So this is starting to hopefully give you a bit of an idea of some of the features you're going to be able to do. You know, so the title of the chart, the scaling of the axes, down to the format of the labels. Are they numeric labels? How many decimal places do you want to see? Are they date labels? What kind of date format do you want to use? You know, you want to change the scaling to be an automatic versus kind of a manual define the scale, or you know, you've got a large range of numbers and you can then bring in kind of a logarithmic scale. I'm going to jump into another control chart, and this is now going to start introducing us to some of the various analysis options that we can use. So on this chart itself, we've got a moving average. Okay, so this is a moving average of period 10, something you can define. And so you can choose now what you want to see. So do you want to see the line that represents the certified value? It's up to you. Control it as you wish. You know, do you want to see your standard deviation lines? Yes or no? And from there, which ones do you want to see? Do you want to see all 3 standard deviations, or do you only want to see the second and third, or the first and the second, or the first and the third? You know, again, you've got control. For this particular chart, I've added a moving average analysis option, specified it's for a period of 10, and I've also got the ability to define the visual properties of that line. Something else that's happened here, you know, I've got dates on the bottom, I've formatted those a certain way, and my legend appears in a different spot, kind of with a different format, right? So again, you're going to have a lot of control over how these things are going to look and how they're going to feel. Here's another example. I've kind of tweaked the background colors a little bit, set a bit of a different gradient to make the plotting area pop a bit more. I've changed the line styles of these various standard deviation lines and the certified value lines, right? So right down to each individual line, you can define the size of the line, the style of the line. For this particular chart, it's showing me what the value of that line is on both sides. For my points themselves, within one standard deviation is a blue circle. You know, within this range is green triangles, yellow squares. You get the point. So you've got control now, complete control. We've also added the ability on a standard control chart to show a regression line. You want to see the trend of the data kind of as the project's progressed. If that makes sense for the analysis that you're doing, you can go ahead and add it. And then, again, control the visual properties of that line. And then from standard charts into a blank chart. So now getting into kind of the contamination. So it's treated similar in the sense that we've got kind of an expected value. And then we've also got this notion of, you know, error limits. So with a field blank, we're going to expect a certain value, whether that's 0, but we're going to have a certain threshold as well. And so we can now kind of control the visual properties based on those limits. So as these points come in above this, you know, warning level or the max, you know, min and max lines, then we can assign them different visual properties. So what I'll do before jumping into the next group is give you a taste of kind of what the interface looks like when you're building these charts. And we'll step through some of the different options here and some of the different categories. So at first, you know, we specify chart titles and subtitles, and now we've got a list of all the available charts. I'll step through an example of each one of these as far as what they look like, but this for now is going to be how we build it, right? So you select the type of chart that you want. You can control, do you want to see summary statistics? Do you want to see the actual data, the results? We'll talk a little bit later about what a global chart means. And then from there, we can choose which standard, you know, which element, which unit of measure, which method. This is all coming from the database, you know, what's been defined, what are all the limits behind that. From there, what results do we want to see? So from the old report manager, we had these different charts. We had a before chart, an after chart, you know, a before-after chart, that sort of thing. And really the only difference between all these different charts was kind of which data it was including. And so instead, we've got a single chart that represents, standards, and then now you just tell the system what data do you want to see. Do you want to see all of the latest results? Do you want to see the first results? And this gives you the ability to kind of run both of them side by side so that you could see, at one point in time, there were points that fell quite far out of the limits, but then we took appropriate actions, and then now the final state of the database is this, and everything's falling within limits. And we've also got the ability to control how this data gets plotted. We want to plot it against when it's imported, when it was analyzed, or just as it occurs in the database, right? So a little bit of control here. One of the other things we've added here is filter criteria, and this is really following conventions that we've already been adding into Fusion. So in Fusion Client and some of the other Windows, we've been adding the filter operators, right? So this is where you can choose the column you want to filter on, choose the operator you want to filter on, and then you can specify the values, right? So for example, if I want to filter this chart for a particular lab, I can come in here now and choose how do I want to filter, right? So do I want to do it for a single lab? Do I want to exclude a certain lab? Do I want to do something that kind of falls within a certain range? If it's dates, we can do a between. If it's numbers, you can do the graders and less than. It really gives you flexibility to just filter and kind of slice that data however you want. The old version of the software had a bit of a predefined set of filters that you could use, and only certain ways you could filter that data. Now you do it however you want. So if I want to do it for a particular lab, we're also going to get the actual contents of the data. So I want to run it for a particular lab. I also want to run it for where the analysis date is between and then a certain range. When we're dealing with dates, we've also got these relative filters where you can choose year to date for a given year for 30 days. So what this lets you do then is really kind of define the templates and say this is a year to date a year to date chart for a specific lab. Whenever you run it, it's always going to just pull kind of the appropriate date range. You can really then control it however you want. Okay, and so once we've defined the chart, we can then define what various analysis options we want to see. So by default, it's going to include for us the expected value. So this is the certified value of this reference material. And it's also going to include for us the error limits or the standard deviations. And this is where you can turn on and off which lines do you want to see. Everything's very intuitive. It's very nice big buttons. I've been using this lately on our Surface tablet here, so everything works nicely. And we've got a few other options. We want to add a moving average of period 10. And maybe we also want to show on this chart the detection limits. So we're working with a certain lab and a certain lab package, and it's got a certain detection limit that maybe we want to plot that on the chart as well to give us just an additional point of reference. So from there, now that we've defined how we want the chart to look, how do we want to slice and dice the data, what are the various points and lines we want to see on that chart, now you can get into the chart options, okay? And this is where you really have a lot to play with. So we break it up into certain high-level categories. All the labels that are going to appear on this chart, the title, subtitles, the axis titles, the axis labels, the legend itself, how do you want it to appear? Pick your font, pick the font size, how does it look, how do you want to align it? Maybe you want to turn things off altogether. I don't want to see an x-axis title. Fine, you can come in and turn it off. getting into x-axis labels, what category is it? Is it a numeric value? How many decimal places do you want? Is it a date format? Then let's apply some sort of mask to it. And the list of available masks that you're going to get here are driven from your computer's regional settings. So it's really giving you a level of flexibility that the previous version didn't. Working down into the series options. So as we've defined the chart to break up the data and the various lines that we want to see, now you can kind of step through each individual one and control the style of the point. For the line, so you can specify the style of the line, the color of it, the size of it, and you want to see the label on that line and or the value and whereabouts on that line, and if we're showing the value, how many decimal places. So again, you really have complete control over this. The other thing that we've really tried to be consistent with and enable throughout these screens is the ability for you to also specify custom labels. So we're always going to have kind of default labels as far as, here's an expected value line, and by default, in the legend and on the line, you're going to see the text expected value. But if you're working in a different language, in Spanish or French, you can come in and you can make this label whatever you want, so that whatever appears in the legend or on the chart is exactly what you want it to be. No more kind of dealing with decisions that we've just made and kind of imposed. We're going to give you a default layout, a default template, and then just let you play with it and let you really make it look however you want to look. For both the X and Y axis, you can specify the scaling. Do you want the system to auto scale it? You can specify manual scaling. You can specify how the axes are divided up, major and minor divisions, the various colors of the grids, and for the scatter plots, you can enable a make square option, right? So we always want to see scatter plot charts to be exactly square. It's going to give us a more accurate representation of that comparison. And down into the color options, so the backgrounds and the various text areas, the plotting area itself, specify the colors that you want, the gradients that you want. Are there borders around these sections, right? So again, you can make these things look exactly how you want them to look. So stepping into now some of the duplicate and precision type charts, the original versus duplicate, so this will be the first one that we'll step through. And this will give you an idea of the scatter plots and some of the different options that are available here. So instead of dealing with, standard deviations and stuff like that, we can specify instead just a tolerance, right? So we're dealing here with field duplicate values, so original versus a field duplicate. And we want to see, or we allow up to a 15% deviation of that data. So now we can see that, right? So we've got our plus and minus 15%. Again, I've controlled the text I want to see on these lines and the colors. And then we can, similar to the control chart, the standard control chart, we can control the points as they relate to those tolerance limits. So I've got points that fall out of those deviations, and I've got them red, red a certain marker style. These I've got kind of that x equals y 1-to-1 line as our point of reference, and I've also got on this chart the regression line, and in this case they're actually pretty close, so that's going to be a good sign. The other thing that I've enabled for this chart, which might be hard to see, but I've got detection limits showing here. So there's a kind of a fluorescent green dotted line that kind of hugs the axes here, but this is just giving us another point of reference, another visual cue of how this data is performing against either a known value, an acceptable tolerance, or these detection limits. When we're working with the original versus duplicates, right, again, so the inputs look a bit different. What's the sample types you want to deal with? What are the result values you want to work with? And the analysis options are slightly different as well, right? So we've got our x equals y, our regression, the tolerance limits, and in this case, we've got the detection limits. Stepping into some of the other, things that you can include in a chart are the summary values and the data itself, so the results themselves. So we've extended these notions of flexibility and complete control. So for the summary values, it's going to step through each value that will be determined and included in the summary section. First off, you can turn these on and off, so exactly which results do you want. What label, again, do you want to see? So working in a different language, again, you can specify something more local. And also then into dates and numeric values, control however you want it, right? So how many decimal places do you want to see? And this control is done on each individual value. And that exact same concept is also applied to the result set. So, what are the columns that are going to be included in the final result set? What's the label that'll be included? And again, how do I want that data to appear? And also, we've included an additional filter criteria here. So this lets you control, the data that gets outputted versus the data that's included in the chart. So, for example, we may want to see a standard control chart that shows me, all the data, passes and failures, but then I want to see a table of data underneath that chart that just shows me the failures. I just want to see the data for the points, the samples that have failed. So you could do stuff like that. Or you want to filter that result set to a particular lab or a particular date or something like that. Whatever you want to do. You've got, all the columns available to you here, and then all the filter operators again. They're just extended here. But stepping through some of the other charts that we can run. So we saw this original versus duplicate. The other chart and kind of the next step in the precision calculation is the difference versus sample pair, right? So this is now determining and plotting results by grade based on their difference. You can choose, I want to see the absolute difference, I want to see the actual difference, a percent difference, the relative change. So you've got different options in how you want to see this data. And then again, you can control kind of the various reference lines or analysis options you want to see on there as well. And then stepping into the Thomson-Haworth charts. So the first Thomson-Haworth is the groups of 11. So this is where we can start to get a sense of the precision of our data, through the grade ranges. This is ultimately going to feed itself into that final Thomson-Haworth precision versus calculation or concentration. And again, we've got the supporting material on exactly, what this data is telling you. What does the trends tell you? What does the clusters of data tell you? And down into a final Thomson-Haworth precision versus concentration. Now to really give you that kind of smooth relationship of your data, and as the grade ranges increase, what is the step through the precision, or what's the precision through the various grades. And then you can run this for the various QC samples, the field dupes, the pulp, the rejects, and you're going to see the, as it steps through the various preparation and analytical processes, how it changes the precision. Okay, and outside of those charts, we've also got our QQ, or quantile versus quantile. So this is going to give us kind of an indication of bias between a check lab and a primary lab. So there's other ways that we can use this QQ chart, but that's probably one of its main purposes. When we do a round of check sampling, we want to see, is there any bias towards one lab or another? And then this isn't going to tell us which one is more accurate. We're going to do that through the standard control charts and check the accuracy and the contamination, right? So this is where we can start to combine things to hopefully lead us in a certain direction that then says, okay, we need a bit more analysis, so let's now jump into these next set of charts. Back to standards, we've added a new chart, which is called the ZScore chart. And what this lets you do is kind of normalize your data into, in a way that you can now analyze multiple standard results in the same chart. So, right now I'm looking at 3 different standards, all of which have different certified values, but what we've done is calculated what's called the Z-score, and this is essentially how many standard deviations are these points away from the certified value. And then it provides us a way to now do this and kind of do an across-project comparison of standards for the same element, or for one standard, the different elements that we've been analyzing for. So however you want to combine those things, now using the Z-score chart, you can really get a good sense of the performance of all your standards for whatever range you've done, a certain project, a certain lab, a certain date range, whatever the case might be. Along those same lines of comparing multiple standards, we've also got just a basic multiple standards chart. And so this gives us the ability to, again, I want to see different results for different standards, all plotted on the same chart. And this particular chart is plotting against the relative difference and giving us a bit of a box plot, right? So it's a summary of the data, but let's summarize all of these results and show them, in a way that we can kind of see the performance across all the standards for a given project. Now, in this particular build I've got here, everything's kind of being clustered around this one point, but what will happen here is this will be spread out a bit more as far as where these lines appear across that x-axis. But just to give you an idea of some of the different options we've got here. And then one of the other charts we have available is just a straight up kind of box plot distribution. So if you're starting to step through your precision and you want to get a sense of what's the distribution of all of my original sample points and all of my duplicate sample points, you can start with this and get a sense of kind of, yeah, they're similar, or maybe one set is just way off from the other right away, right? So it's just providing you different ways of analyzing the data. These box plots will also give you kind of an average value and a mean value across that entire data set. So this is showing you kind of the different charts that we've got available. Hopefully you've got a good idea of the different options that are available as far as controlling what the content of the charts are, all the visual properties, how do we group the points, how do we draw the lines, how do we draw the chart itself, and what text do we want to see. You've got complete control over every single one of those things, so you now can really bring the system to your own standards. And so where this kind of steps away from the old version of Report Manager is this relationship now between charts and activities. What an activity is, it's essentially a group of charts that we'll apply a filter to. So there's no longer this one-to-one relationship that one chart is always part of one activity. Instead, in this new version, an activity is just, you can include as many charts as you want, and a chart can be included in as many activities as you want. And really all it does is it just gives us the opportunity to use those chart templates that you've defined and now really refine them to the exact data sets that we want. So, for example, I'll have an activity here that I have defined that is for a particular lab, okay? So I've got, you know, a list of all the available charts that I could add to this activity, so all the different chart templates that have been defined. In this case, I've brought in the various standard charts and the blank chart and my ZScore as well. Okay, so those have already been predefined. I like how they look. I like all the analysis and all the labels have been set up. And so now for this particular activity, I'm just specifying a filter for a very specific lab. So I want to run all of these charts just for this specific lab. And then what that gives us, if we run it within Report Manager, now we can just step through the tabs, you know. So hopefully one of the things you notice is the performance of the system is quite fast. Stepping through the different options and the different objects that have been defined is quick and very rapid, but also running the charts. I mean, this took seconds, chugging through the large amount of data that's in the database. So we've done a lot of work on that side as well. Right, so this is the way to apply the templates for specific data sets. That's for Lab 1, and I'm going to run it again with a different filter for Lab 3. So same chart, same analysis options, and I'm getting this consistent, you know, consistent look and feel, this consistent analysis. And what it can give you then as a company is a way to kind of enforce certain, policies. Say, I want my sites to be running these charts. I want them to be using these templates that include these analysis options. I've set it up in a way so that failures are very visible, you know, and then here's a means, and what we'll step into next is here's a means of dumping all of these into a reporting template that I want them all to send to me at the end of the month, or that I can go in and run it, you know, as a higher level analyst. So it really kind of gives you a lot of flexibility, and it depending on kind of the sites that you are, and if you've got multiple sites, you know, you can do this kind of top-down, push things down to the various sites, or you can just operate in a local, work on your own database, work off of a remote database. We'll talk near the end about how the objects define, and you know, how who can do what and who can see what, that sort of thing. But you know, so these are activities, or you can even just group. So I want to see all my Thomson-Howarth charts for the Duke pulp rejects. As I run this, right, then I can step through the tabs and see, you know, the precision gets worse as you kind of step through those different processes. Okay. So now moving into the reports module, for this first version, we've kept it fairly simple. Basically, we're just giving you the ability to get these charts and get the various objects into a report, whether it's a Word file that then you can edit, or straight into a PDF format. In a previous version, we kind of had a link to Word, Microsoft Word, to do some of this work. That's all since been removed. So now everything's done internally within the software. We've got control over how we generate these reports. So if anybody experienced any of those issues with certain desktop software, that's all gone away. But to give you a sense of what you can do with these reports is we're going to see a group of the activities that I have defined and all the individual charts that I have defined. And so what you can do now is just start building your report. So I want to see a certain activity first, and then maybe some specific charts that I've got set up a certain way, and then I want to see a different activity later down in the report. And you can drag and drop the position of these things as they appear in your report. And the other thing you can do here is you can add static text to these reports. So, I've got certain text objects here. That's just, I've kind of inserted a certain blurb into the report. I can format it however I want. So if you want to put a title into the report, make it a big font, big color, center it, and then below that have a bit of an introduction as to what this report's going to give us. Format that a different way, a bit of a more standard paragraph font. And then from there we can start then building the different pieces. So in this report example I've got here, I've got different text components here as far as a title, a bit of a blurb of what's going on, then a category that we're going to run standard control charts first. I'm going to run them for Lab 1 first, and then I've included my Lab 1 activity, right? So this activity had all the charts defined that it was to include and specified the filters that it wanted to include. And then I've got another text object specifying, okay, now the next set of charts are going to be specific to Lab 2. And then I'll run the next activity that's got the appropriate filter defined. So what you can get then, and let me just make sure that I've got kind of a folder set up here. We'll go ahead and run this to give you an idea of what this can look like. Okay, so as it stands, output it to Word or PDF. Word's just going to give you the ability to edit it after the fact, whereas PDF is kind of a more final format. So I'm just going to dump this into my temp folder I have here. The system's going to assign it a default file name, what's the report name, and what's the current date. So this is just, again, the default, and you can go from there. Browse to where you want to dump this report, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. So it's going to run all those activities for all the charts I've specified, filtering it the way I've specified. It's going to include all those static text objects as I've specified the formatting of, and put everything in the positions that I've specified for this report. So that at the end of the day, I run my report, and now I've got my text here formatted exactly how I want, and I've got all my charts looking exactly how I had defined them. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll through this real quick, but these are all my standard charts, and then down into my duplicate charts. In this one, I had included a summary, and you can see, for some of these, I've got 3 decimal places. For others, I've got 2 decimal places. If I specified custom labels for how I want this text to appear, again, you've got that control. So this gives you an idea of now some of the things that you can do. So getting kind of near the close here, the next thing to talk about is kind of the behavior and the security of how this works. So we've added a new user profile called the Report Manager Administrator. And first of all, this user can pretty much do everything. Okay, so a Report Manager admin can basically see and edit any object that anybody's created. Okay, so that's one of the things that we've added. The other thing that a Report Manager Administrator can do is create what's called a global object. And a global object is something that can only be done on the central database, and a global object is then propagated down to every remote and local that's within your database schema. Okay? And so this is how you're going to do this kind of top-down corporate format. I want you to run these charts with this format. Here's your report set up exactly how I want it. Okay, so you can do this now by specifying these global objects. And when you specify an object as global, you can also specify what business units you want to have access to it, right? So not only are you putting in these kind of top-down structures and objects, but you're also going to refine it exactly to the various projects. So for one project, you've got a certain suite of reports and charts and activities, and for another business unit, another project, you could have another template, another activities and reports. And a user is only going to see the objects that his business unit has access to, right? Pretty simple concept. But beyond that, for a general user, they can essentially log into any database, local database, remote database, and create charts and activities and reports. These won't get propagated down, but I can still do my own ad hoc reports and just go in and run a chart. And as far as ownership goes, right, so as a user, I come in and I create a certain object. I'm the owner of that object. I can make changes to that object and delete it and edit it however much I want. Another user, they can see the object that I created, but they can't make any changes to it, okay? So we've locked it down in that regard. But what the second user can do is just make a copy of it. So they like the template that you've created, they like the formatting you've done, so the second user can now take a copy of your object, and now it's their object to kind of change it however they want. And then going back to this report manager administrator, they can change the owner of an object. So somebody's gone in and created a bunch of charts and reports that site's been using now, and they've now left the company, so somebody else needs to go in and take over. The report manager admin can now go in and actually change who the owner is. Okay, so that kind of concludes the in-software demonstration that I wanted to show you. And I hope that I've touched on everything, and I've gone through it really quick, and hopefully I didn't lose anybody, but I really just wanted to make sure that you kind of saw everything and really got a good sense of what the new system does, you know, how flexible it is, how much control you're going to have, and hopefully get you some interest and want you to give us a call and see where we can go from there. So now what I'm going to do is go back to the conference control here. And because the last thing that I just want to talk a little bit about is kind of where we're going from here. So from a scheduling perspective, this version of the software is going to be released with Fusion 8. And Teresa kind of mentioned Fusion 8 is going to be ready about the March-April timeline, so very soon. We're likely going to do a webinar on Fusion 8 by itself because it's got a lot of really great stuff coming in it, and it's another thing that we're really excited about to show you and get into your hands. And Report Manager 3 is going to be part of that version. So this initial version is going to have pretty much what we've seen today. Now, where we're going to go from there is we've already identified some new charts we want to add to this. One of those is kind of just metrics around your sampling. So how many samples are you taking on a monthly, daily, quarterly, annually basis? What's the trend of the samples? You know, how many are being taken? How many are being sent for analysis? How many are waiting? So just really, it's all just metrics, right? So it's performance monitoring of what's happening in your drilling programs. And also, we've got a few other additional charts identified. Cumulative sum is one of the charts we'll be working on, which is a way that you can detect a long-term continuous bias. And so one example of where this could be useful is if you've got, you know, a standard reference material that kind of is degrading over time. So it would be really hard to catch that and really hard to see that, but this chart's going to give you that. So it's basically going to do a cumulative difference. And then if you see the line, you know, the proper, if the lab is operating properly, you would see a random distribution. But if things are degrading, then you would see a line kind of trending downwards, and it means things are just degrading over time. As well as the relative absolute difference is another chart we're going to work on, and this is just a different alternative to the Thomson-Howarth, because one of the things that the Thomson-Howarth charts require is a lot of data. In order for the Thomson-Howarth charts to really be meaningful and really provide you a good kind of indication of the of the precision of your data, you need quite a bit of data points. Just that's the notion of that kind of algorithm. And so the RAD chart is an alternative that you could use if you maybe don't have as many data points, or if the data is kind of behaving a little bit differently. So that's going to come out soon. Something else we're working on as well will be the ability to capture the round-robin data. So for your reference material, what's the round-robin data? Let's get it into the system first of all, and then let's give you the ability to see it on the chart. So the first half of your control chart is going to be all just the round-robin data from the various labs, and then we'll give you kind of a visual break-off to say, and now here's your data. So it really gives you a good indication of how these results should be performing versus how they actually are in your usage. We're also looking at how we can bring in geology. So with some of these precision charts, it could be very useful to show the rock type of the different points. So what it can give you then is a clear indication of the variability that might be due to geology. So is there worse precision in certain rock types than others? So this is something that we've already got in the database, and now it's just going to be a matter of pulling into the system. This notion of parameters. So right now, you define a chart for a certain standard and result, but we want to be able to let you kind of choose which ones you want on runtime or on the fly. So specify your standard template, but then when you run it, then you can choose the standard you want, or then you can choose the result that you want. And it'll also then really extend this activity relationship, because then at the activity level you could say, give me this one standard control chart template, and then now in this activity, run it for these standards, these elements, and you'll be able to specify the prompts at that point. And as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be evolving this product as our desktop reporting product. We're also going to be in conjunction working towards Summit, which is a very web online reporting system that is something to stay tuned, and you'll be hearing about that more soon. But we're going to be kind of bringing the two together as far as an integration. So if you're going to be using the online stuff, how could you get objects that you've been defining and building in your desktop up into the online system and vice versa. But really what we want to do is just consolidate all of our desktop reporting and querying and charting tools into a single product. And then things will be modular, and licensing will also be in a way that depending on what license you're working off of, which modules do you have available to you. And so that's it. I think we maybe ran a little bit over time, but hopefully it wasn't too bad. Glad to see that everybody's still around. And so what we can do now is maybe open up the chat a little bit. I don't think we'll unmute it, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And then as we see them, we can address them, or if we have too many, then we can maybe hit you up offline. What I just wanted to mention last is that here in Canada, we've got an upcoming conference at the beginning of March, the PDAC. We're going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have with me, a nice tablet. I'm going to have the latest and greatest report manager with me. So if you're going to be there, come and look us up. And come and see me, come talk to me. I'll show you what we've got. Any specific questions, please let us know, and let us know how we can get this into your hands when it's ready.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. Like you said, yeah, we received a few questions, so I'm going to read them off here, and we can go from there. You mentioned that it runs on Windows 8, but can it run on older versions of Windows?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to demonstrate it on Windows 8 just to kind of show you that we're keeping up with the new operating systems that are coming up. But absolutely, we also test this against Windows 7, and we'll still run it on Windows XP, but that's very, very quickly going to be deprecated, not even from our own choice, but that's, Microsoft has already kind of stopped supporting that, but we still run it on there, kind of make sure things are working. So absolutely, if it'll work against most of those current Windows operating systems.
For the box plots, can you control where the divisions are?
So I'm assuming that the divisions that's referring to the whether that's referring to the average and mean values, or, well, what you can do on the box plot is you can specify the percentiles you want. So you want to see the 5th, 85th, you want to see the 10th, 90th. You can specify that absolutely. Let me actually see if I'll show you what that looks like. So for the distribution chart, so for the percentile, we've got kind of the default 15, 85th, 10, 90th, 5th, 95th, or 0 to 100. And also for the box plot, you've got, you can specify you want to see the average value, the median value. Do you want to see those unusual points, the outliers above those percentiles that you've specified? So you can turn these on and off as you wish.
Dave, we're still looking at the presentation, I think.
Oh, sorry, I didn't jump into it, didn't I? Let me just do this real quick. Okay, yeah, so this is the input for the box plot, the distribution chart. So yeah, you can specify which percentiles you want to see. And also from here within the analysis, you can choose, I want to see the average line, I want to see the median, I want to see the unusual points, the outliers. So this is specific to that distribution chart, but also on the multiple standards where we've also got a box plot as an option. Again, you can choose which percentiles you want to see. You want to see the average, you want to see the median, right? So again, we haven't really forced you down any particular path as far as what you see, what you can do. We've provided default options and a suite of analysis tools that then you can really narrow them down and really focus them exactly to how you want to see it. How do you want to see your data?
The question was referring to the quantile or the percentage of the box plot.
Yeah, so I think that addressed it. The percentile. That's the options that you've got.
Can this version of Report Manager run on Fusion 7, or is it only available on Fusion 8?
So this version of Report Manager will only be available with Fusion 8. So if you want it, you're going to have to upgrade to Fusion 8, which is going to be worth it, and that'll be clear. That'll be why it's worth it will be clear when we do a Fusion 8 webinar. So the reasons for it are because we've got new structures in the database. We've got new behaviors as far as the objects moving up and down that I've explained. And so in order for us to enable this functionality, if we were to try to now go back to previous versions, it would just cause a bit of it would be hard to manage for us from a code perspective, because you've got to go back to the different code bases, test it against them. So instead, the decision's been made that we're going to move forward with this. So with Fusion 8 and on from there.
And if you don't currently have Report Manager and you install it onto your existing Fusion database, will it integrate well with what you already have?
Yeah, absolutely. So this uses the same license of Report Manager that the previous Report Manager used. So for people who already have license of a Report Manager, you'll be able to just use this new version with those same licenses. And for those who have never considered Report Manager before, or maybe you evaluated it and it wasn't quite there, hopefully this version is there, or it's closer, and so now hopefully you'll be interested. And so it's just a matter of contacting somebody from one of our regional offices and asking them about what's involved in getting you upgraded to Fusion 8, first of all, and then getting you licenses of Report Manager.
Okay, well, thank you again, Dave, and everyone who joined us. We appreciate your time. Don't forget to join us in 2 weeks when Ian Lipchuk, our Solutions Manager for Underground Planning Systems, will be showing us AGIS, the next generation underground drill blasting design. Lastly, I'll be following up with an email containing a link to this recording. If you have any questions or comments, I can be reached at teresabowers@dataminesoftware.com or by phone at 705-688-0101. That's it, everyone. Hope to see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.